ultimately, the fact that you have the choice is the key. You're the one that gets to narrow the options and have that patriarch type decision discussion making process with everyone involved, your business partner, your wife, the kids, depending on what you're doing. And I think that's really, really tremendously powerful. And it can't be understated to the degree that that's showing up in your life.
Oh, it translates into, just how you can conduct yourself in how you relate to other aspects of your life, right? When you have that, because that demands something from you. It demands from you to be aware, self-aware, to evaluate, to be creative, to take risks, measured ones, or whatever your appetite for that is. But it demands something of responsibility and like that. So that self-reliance piece, if there's, I can't think of a better word. And so with that, you're developing that skill and that role within the context of infinite banking. But that can translate to anything. It translate to how you're parenting, translate to how you're interacting with your property, in terms of managing it, other relationships. So it's almost like a confidence or a training of your nervous system to kind of embody something that's going to bleed into all the things you do, because you have some freedom. You're not like, oh, and coming from this like fear restrictive place, and that, the impact that can have, that we can't even, there's no spreadsheet for that. I haven't found it yet anyway.
You're looking. You'll let me know when you come across one.
Well, with AI, who knows? Maybe there'll be one coming out soon.
I'll have an appointment booking in my calendar that shows up. It says, "I found the spreadsheet." Well,
spreadsheet of happiness.
What I really love, Richard, about what you identified, I really think you've encapsulated to a degree that I don't think maybe anyone else we've had on our show has done. Your description of what you just identified is the infinite in the infinite banking.
Right.
Okay. The way that you identified these various components and the feeling, the connection of what it does for you, the nervous system. I love how you identified, training of the nervous system, the component of responsibility that is there. And that's why we spend time on education. That's why a person needs that education first, rather than just, oh, give me a policy and, see you later. There's no value in that. The value is in the learning and then the doing, because the doing creates more learning, and then you have more learning, which creates a new type of doing, and then the new type of doing creates more learning. That's the loop that we go through as human beings in most areas of our life. It's just that a lot of people aren't really taking the time to do that financially. And this creates a tremendous opportunity for you to do that financially, because, I don't know about you, but, if you use a pencil, sometimes you break the tip and you have to sharpen it. And eventually you'll go through a pencil and you happen to need a new one. That identifies learning. You have to break some pencils and go through a few erasers along the road of life. And everyone's done it financially to some degree or another. The more you can do that in a short time frame, in small increments, buying the beater car, repaying it, taking care of the transmission you need to fix, repaying it, taking care of paying your annual tax bill, repaying it. Like, those are all building blocks. Those are all pencils that you had to resharpen, that are giving you the reps that you need to be really successful in this process. And I love hearing about it.
And that's a big part of the appeal for me, and sort of how that ties into naturopathic medicine is, when I sit with patients, that's essentially what you're hoping to and wanting to, and that's your goal, is to help people start to take control and charge of their health, and to make decisions that are going to keep them healthy and that are going to empower them to eat better, to move their body, to do all of these things. And so it's kind of like a chicken and the egg a little bit, right? So it's very similar in that sense, but it's in the financial realm. But it's the same template. It's like, I'm very, very proactive about my health, like the food we eat, the way we source it, the way we prepare it. That's our nourishment. But it's the same sort of mindset of responsibility, learning, that whole loop you described. And so that's what's been really exciting over the past couple of years now, that we're starting to really see traction and the interplay of these different policies. It's like, I can really feel the holistic aspect of this too. right? Like this is, it's a system. As I always talk about systems in naturopathic medicine, we're supporting systems so that the symptoms don't have to yell. And so it's really about a systems-based approach. And this is also a system. You're building an ecosystem in a system. And it's how I try to my best to work with the land, right? It's like all that energy that's coming through your land, water, sun, wind, the soil, the plants, the animals. How are you capturing that energy that's coming through and cycling it back into the land and not watching it drip away in entropy and just sort of dissipate into like less potential for amplifying life on the land? And so you're bringing that in as like capturing that interest. You're capturing that water. You're building the soil. You're using the chicken manure. You're doing all of these things to build a healthier, more robust, self-regulating system. And that's what you're trying to do in sort of your health and with the land and financially. So that, to me, they're all the very similar mindset. And so when you start to, and the financial one was where maybe I had least confidence at a certain point. And so that's where, I'm often like, okay, where do I have resistance? Where do I have lack of confidence? Where do I feel tension? I got to lean into that because there's something good on the other side of that. And so this was a big piece of the puzzle, obviously, to be able to lean into it and be like, ooh, this is fun and exciting and empowering and keeps you creative.
Yeah, well, I love that, and I've seen it. I've seen it in the way that you're approaching your thinking, the questions that you ask. You're a very inquisitive guy. You love learning, and I think that's a common trend with the people that we serve. The people that tend to listen to the podcast, they're avid learners. They want to take in something new, and they want to say, okay, what's this new piece of information, and how do I run that through what I already know? What's it going to cause for a new type of thinking for me? And I think these connection points you're making to land as you're talking about taking all the different energy elements, the energetics of, just water going through a land. Well, if it's all runoff and you're not able to repurpose it to use it in your garden, how's that going to work? If you don't, you determine where you're going to place your garden and where it's going to get sun exposure and all these kind of things. And then you might say, okay, now you've got it running. You've got manure in there. You've got fertilizer. You've done all these things. You go through your first growing season. Cool. Now the next year you're going to make improvements. Maybe 2 years from now, you're actually going to extend or expand the garden, or you're going to create one in a new location for a different type of plant. So I'm looking at that. So I'm saying, oh, well, that's policy 1, capitalization. Boom. Over here is policy 2, capitalization. Right. And you're doing annual elements. You have a growing season, but it produces fruit that you're able to utilize, in various ways to provide energy. And then you got to go and replant it again next year. So you got to pay premium again. You got to keep the machine in operation. And if you don't tend the garden well, and you don't replant it, what's going to happen? You're not going to have a garden. You're not going to have the fruits of what that garden produces, or the vegetables, as it were. So I really see the connection point in a similarity to how we can think about a financial system around insurance policies, whole life policies that require a certain measure of maintenance, tending, and care. Annual effort must go in to support that system. It's mostly mental effort and a couple of keystrokes at a computer. Beyond that, there's not a lot really involved, but it does require a commitment to have that level of involvement.
And there's a degree of patience there too, right? This isn't hey, I just 10x'd on a crypto, right? This is not that. I've been at it 8 years and I'm really getting it, and it's really driving it. And you often use the analogy of the steam engine, right? It takes 90% of the energy to get to that point, and then you've got the steam at the last 10% you're moving. To me, that's a fruit tree. How much input you put into a fruit tree those first couple of years, and it's like, why am I doing this? This is like just a waste of my time.
Right.
It can feel like that. Not infinite banking, but like that, like where is this going? What is this? You have to have that sort of understanding that there's patience here, and there's a little bit of looking forward too.
Yeah. Future focused. And so now, another thing that you've been able to do, I know you've gone on some vacations as well with your system a little bit. So what's that been like as far as, I guess, again, how you maybe did that in the past before infinite banking versus now doing it in the ecosystem way that you've developed. And what's really key about this, Richard, I want to help people understand, is that your way, your method, how you're doing it is that it's your way, your method. You're
Mhm.
borrowing and grabbing things that you've heard on the podcast, watching different pieces of content. You've attended a number of our group quarterly coaching sessions, and you go through the client membership site and watch some of those videos. So each one of those things are little elements of inspiration, and you might grab maybe 5% of what you hear, 10% of what you hear, and try to implement that in your own life. Is that a fair way of looking at how you've kind of put it together in a way that works for you and your family?
Yeah. Part of it is like hearing the stories of how people use it. Like, oh, that, yeah, okay, that's an interesting thing. Not doesn't fit um my exact ecosystem, but it's like it opens up some sort of way of thinking
Mm,
around how I can interact with these policies. And yeah, vacations are, one of them where the profit first aspect, right? So we've tucked away that percentage every month that, I've kept track of and I know what that number is. And it's been generating and doing what it's doing in the policy instead of just sitting there in a bank account. And now it's like, okay, it's at a certain level here. All right, where do you guys want to go? Do we want to go to Mexico? Do we want to go to Sedona? What do you want to do? And you can do that, and it's coming from that place where it's been allotted to come from.